All right, welcome to this live stream. We're just doing a little brief update on the 2024 presidential election. Let me see if the audio is working here fine. Should have done this before. Just 1 second. Uh, yes, perfect. Okay. So this was the final result. As you can see here in the background, we had Trump at 312 electoral votes and Kamala Harris 226. This is what the map looks like at the moment. And this was the electoral map back in 2016. I'm going to show you guys soon right now. The screen right here. Okay, so this is what the map looked like in 2016. I take that back. This is a 20. This is a map in 2016, and then we have 2020 right there. Okay, wonderful, and of course, the map today, right there. So the swing states that were up for grabs out on the west were Nevada and Arizona. And if you looked at the going back to 2016, both those states went to the Democrats. And in 2020, well, actually, my mistake. Nevada went Democrat, but Arizona went Republican. And then in 2020, both the states on Arizona, Nevada went blue. And in this election, of course, they both went red. So, and over on the southeastern part of the country, we look at North Carolina and Georgia over here. You had both states going red in 2016. Uh, they split in 2020 in the last election, where Georgia barely went Democrat, and of course, in this election, you have both of them going well, Republican. And going back to 2016, the other three swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all went red. Minnesota, the other swing state, went blue in 2016. And in 2020, they all went blue. Okay. And by the way, what's interesting also in 2016, Illinois down there is voting blue. And they all of them except Minnesota went red in this election. So that's basically the what happened there. Over on the Senate side, you had this happening. On just 1 second. So that's basically the and let's see if it came out here. Freeze. Okay, so I don't think it's showing at the moment, but let me go back here. So, all right, okay. So over here on the, we're going to be taking a look at the results, and I apologize by the way because of my site's really bad. So here's the map. Uh, Again, the presidential electoral college map. I think in December 11th, the electoral college will meet and then vote in for the president. And this is the what the Senate outlook in the Senate looks like. The race in Arizona was called by most of the major media networks. They were called by the Associated Press. And let me see if I have right here. So the Associated Press had just called last night the race in Arizona to Ruben Gallego. They had also called two House races for the Democrats, the 39th district in California and the 6th district in Louisiana. I had to call the 6th district in my head many days ago because she was the person running there was way far ahead there. So the what we have here in Arizona is it's gone blue. The only state that they're waiting for is Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania had been called for a Republican by the Associated Press. Dave McCormick, I believe, is the candidate they're running in Pennsylvania. Let's just take a look at the map right there. So McCormick at the moment is ahead by a very razor thin margin. What happened here is that all of the votes, 99% of the votes have been counted, but they were waiting on mail-in ballots. And I forget what lead he had, but he had a very significant lead, way more than 33,000. And apparently the Bob Casey, the Democrat, has just cut into that lead where he's only behind by 0.4%, 32,600 votes. And the absentee ballots or the mail-in ballots, that's what they were waiting to be counted. And apparently the mail-in ballots are heavily, in this state, heavily favored the Democrats there. Who's Jay Thomas here? Is he a Green Party? That'd be interesting if he's a Green Party there. But anyhow, and by the way, they have not blamed the Green Party for the election results here in this year's presidential election, because if you look at the numbers, even if every single Green voter had voted Harris, it would not have made a difference at all in the results. So that's where the race looks right now. The Republicans have retaken control of the Senate. They have flipped 3 seats, which is remarkable for the Democrats because this year a lot more Democrats were running to for reelection than Republicans. So it's remarkable that at the moment they have 47. So there could be a situation that we have 52-48 Republican control in the Senate, which is really not that bad for the Democrats. Or worst case scenario for them would be 53-47 in case the vote counting in Pennsylvania does not really go in their favor. But recently it's really they have the momentum at the moment because the Republican candidate's lead is shrinking over there. And you have the House races, and this is what the map looks like. Don't let the red fool you because a lot of that area is just vacant. People don't live in a lot of those areas. In the United States, there are huge populations in the urban centers compared to some of these rural states. But that's what the map looks like at the moment. And specifically in ABC, you need 218 to gain control of the House. And at the moment, ABC News has 215 have called 215 seats for the Republicans and 206 for the Democrats. So there's one race that they had called the Washington District 4 because both they hadn't called this seat many news networks because they didn't know who was really going to win. But it didn't matter because both of the candidates running were Republicans, so he could have like added that seat. But in the House, the Republicans, according to ABC News, they're three seats away from regaining control. For the Democrats, the seats that we're taking a look at is Maine's District number 2, and that's where the candidate, I believe his name is Josh Golden. Let me check here if that's correct or if that's accurate. And actually, I can't even tell here because I don't even have the information. He's ahead at the he had a razor thin lead, but it's actually now with 99% of the vote counted, his lead is actually increased, and he has now a 2,159 vote lead at the moment. But this is a district that if the Democrats do maintain control, and he is the incumbent, by the way, they will have gotten 207. You can give them 207 seats right now. The other race that had been, I think it's this one. Is it number 2? Here, let's see here. No, not that one. Maybe it was no, not that one. Let me go back here. Just 1 second. Maybe it was this one. Right, correct. It was this one. So this seat had not been called, but they finally called it oh, a day ago. And this person was oh way ahead there in Louisiana. So that was one of the districts that they were waiting for. Um, and it's been called uh by almost all of the networks. Another race that to look keep an eye on is Iowa's District number 1. This is really interesting. Uh, this seat is held by the Republicans. The incumbent, Miller Meeks, at the moment, she is only ahead by 796 votes at the moment. And it's a very, and 99% of the votes have been counted in this state. So the Democrats might have an opportunity after all the votes are counted, or maybe it's mail-in ballots, I don't know, to possibly flip this seat as well. If they do, and if they take a Maine, that would give their total to up, bring their total up to 208. And these have been called. The other race that we're taking a look at is Arizona's number 6 district. This is very too close to call. The incumbent is apparent Republican. He's ahead at the moment by almost 5,000 votes, and this is 86% of the votes have already been counted here in this district. So again, if the Democrats, the remaining 14% that are left, if they make up that 5,000 vote difference, they could flip this seat here. The other race that we should also think about, and which the mainstream media hasn't even mentioned even once, I think, is the race in Alaska. Now this is interesting. The incumbent is a Democrat. Okay, Alaska's a red state, but she was able to pull off a victory, I think, in the previous midterm election. Um, I think her name is Mary Peltola, if I'm not mistaken. But at the moment, she's at 115,000 votes. She's 10,000 votes behind the top vote getter. But what the rules in Alaska basically state that if a candidate doesn't get 50% of the vote, they have to then compete in a runoff with the second place vote getter. And what's interesting here is that Peltola is not the only Democratic candidate running in this race. You have, I think his name is Eric Hafner, and he has 2,492 votes there. So what would happen in this runoff? We're expecting that this Republican candidate will not get 50%, and who knows what can happen in the special or runoff election. So it's going to be interesting if this race is not called, whether it changes the balance of power in the House. So the district here, District 1 in Alaska, is one to keep in mind as these vote tallies are votes are being tallied. And here the other race here in Oregon is number 5 is the Republican incumbent is ahead. No, I'm sorry. The Republican is the incumbent in this race, and the Democrat at the moment is ahead by it's by 11,000, almost 11,000 votes, 10,454 vote lead there. So the Democrats are very likely to flip this seat. This is with 88% of the vote counted. So they still have a little bit more than 10% to go. But if they maintain this lead here, they could flip this district there, and they would bring their total close to 218. You need 218 to gain control of the House. So this is one definitely. So the race in Iowa, of course, Maine, they need to hold. The race in um, Alaska, this race here in Oregon's district number 5, and I believe also the race over there in Arizona. So I think we had already said that in Arizona it didn't really look good for them. Well, it's not that bad in Arizona. They might flip that seat. It's possible there. So that's what the picture there. Let's take a look at some of the House races here. Like number 9, District 9, the Democrat, it looks like he's ahead at the moment with 71. But again, it's 71% of the vote counted. If he maintains this lead, he's going to keep control of his House seat there, which would be good news for the Dems. In District 13 in California, we're looking at here a 2,976 vote lead there with 57% of the vote counted. So just barely half of the votes, a little over half, have been counted. We don't know what will happen. I guess anything could happen here in this race. So that's another one to keep an eye on. The 21st district at the moment, the Democratic incumbent has a very small lead, and it's only 64% of the vote counted. So we probably won't know until next week or later this week what's going to happen in this race. The 22nd, we have the Republican ahead by 10,000 votes with 71% of the vote counted. So if they keep this trend, then they're going to keep control of the 22nd district there. It's not going to be a big surprise there. So the other race here is District 41, and it has not been called. The Democrat right now is behind by almost 8,000 votes there, and with 81% of the vote counted. So it's very likely that the Republicans are going to keep control of that district. In District 49, the incumbent, the Democrat, is ahead at the moment with 84% of the vote counted, so they're almost done counting. And he has a 14,000 vote lead at the moment here, so they would need to keep that seat as well. And I think that's all of the. Let's see for the what about the 47? This 47 also has not been called. The Democrat at the moment is ahead, but by a very small margin. It's just 3,300. Anything can happen as we have 16% more of the votes still to left to be counted. So that's another district. The 49 we already went over is 51. That's been called. 41, I think that we already took a look at already. So that's the situation at the moment in the House. Um, so yeah, a lot. There's been finger pointing in the Democratic Party, and I'm gonna play this video here of what I had mentioned before that I thought should have been done, and this was really inspired by Alan Lichtman, but I'm gonna go ahead and play this video for all of you at the moment. This is some where I think, and probably Alan Lichtman agrees, where the Democrats could have gone a different route. They could have made a difference in this election.
Seems to me that Biden is too old. He should resign and let Kamala take over and run for a full term of our own. Do you agree?
There's something to that. I don't entirely disagree with that. It's much better than Biden stepping down and having a huge internal party fight. Biden resigns, Kamala becomes president. That wins the incumbency key and makes it more likely that they'll win the contest key. But don't keep wishing on a star for that. Joe Biden, unless he has some huge health crisis over the next few months, he ain't going anywhere.
It seems to me that Biden.
Okay. So that's I just um ran across this today, and I had it saved it on the computer, and I had been mentioning that I thought that Biden, after what they should have done after the convention, after they nominated Harris, she would have received in that week all of that media attention. That maybe should have waited maybe about a week or a little bit less than a week, and then he should have resigned, and and made Kamala Harris the president. And the reason I felt that that would have been the best move after she had already got the nomination was because it would have been a historic. It would have been monumental. There's a piece out on the Guardian about someone, a Harris aide, saying that, oh, Biden should resign now, and now that she's lost, and so that she can be president, so it would be a symbolic move. It's too late for that. She's already lost, and it would really, I think, look bad for the Democrats, because you would just be rewarding. It would be seen as rewarding failure, that she did not really. I don't want to say she didn't deserve, but she didn't really earn her spot in the presidential ticket. It was only handed to her because of the situation that Biden had found himself in when he imploded during the CNN debate, and we saw the red flags of his health problems throughout the campaign. So it's not something that she earned. But I felt that after the convention, when the Democratic Party had gotten behind her, he should have resigned, uh, and given her the mantle. She would have had all this free media, and all of the Donald Trump would have been forgotten for that period, and she would not have only been the first female president in the history of the U.S., but then she would have also been the first female person of color to become U.S. president. And then on top of that, then the other benefit, the systemic benefit that would have given her would have been that if the states had enough time to draw the ballots, they would have they would have uh they would have shown on their state ballots her name, and the job description underneath her name would have said president instead of vice president. And that's important because a lot of people in presidential elections, the reason that incumbency favors the person in office is that a lot of people just mark on their ballots whoever's president. A lot of people do that. A lot of people don't know, they're not informed about elections. And there are a lot of people in this country who feel that things are, because they are doing well, they feel that, oh, things are going well, I'll just mark for the whoever the president is, or my congressman, right, or my person of a member of Congress. So who's the member of Congress? Someone Jackson. Okay, I'm gonna vote for Jackson. you know and this the same thing with the Senate. This is why in the Senate you have traditionally an incumbency rate of about, I think it's like 95 or 92%, and in the House it's the same, it's above 90%. The incumbents kept getting reelected. And in Alan Lichtman's book, they show that incumbency, when the incumbent is running for the U.S. presidency, it's like a 90%. Uh, it's like a 90% other times they're victorious. Okay. So incumbency is a big key. And I think that that would have helped her, maybe made up some of the difference in that election, especially with the media coverage that would have given her. It would also we would have also have seen a Kamala Harris in office having to make decisions. She probably would have just kept the Biden team, the cabinet in its place, maybe named a new cabinet official or nominated someone somewhere. So all of that would have just given her the opportunity to do something about some of these issues. And maybe she could have done something about the situation in Gaza, or nominated an ambassador or something, or taken a trip overseas, looking trying to look more presidential. The main issue here in this election was, of course, the economy. And let me take a look at here. So I don't think I have any of uh the exit polls here at the moment, but let's see if I can look up some of the exit polling that I found. Where are we? Well, yeah, I can't find it at the moment, but I did save. Uh, let's see if this helps here. Okay. So this is not the exit poll, but this is, part of the debate. Here's this headline that some Democrats blame the party's position on transgender rights and part of for Harris's loss. Um, so, in breaking news right now, the Pentagon leaker Jack Teixeira has been sentenced to 15 years for sharing military secrets. I don't know if you guys recall, but he's a young man who leaked I think he leaked the some of the war plans involving the Ukraine conflict. So he's been sentenced to 15 years, and I believe he was like 19 years old. So he's in Massachusetts Air National Guard, and that's him right there. So it was viral news when he had been arrested last year in April. And let's see if they gave any of the uh, yeah, see, he had leaked classified information. And right here, so there was a document he was accused of leaking included information about providing equipment to Ukraine, while another included discussions about a foreign adversary's plot to target American forces abroad. So he had leaked that, and then I think he had shared it right on Discord, and he had been sharing it with some of his friends online, and he had kind of raised concerns about what the U.S. was doing overseas, I believe. So that's breaking news right there as we speak. But there was an exit poll. Here it is. So this is the NBC exit poll. This is the breakdown right now of the election. And we're not going to take a look at everything, all the demographics here. We're going to skip that. But I did want to take a look at what the issues, really focusing on what issues did really voters care about on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. And so here we go. So is this the first year you voted? 8%, you go on the far left, 8% say yes. This is the first time I'm voting. Okay. Um, so 92% are saying no, this is not my first time voting. I voted before already. Do you think the condition of the nation's economy is excellent, good, not so good, poor? So the negative results there are at 70% overall. And look at the score among Democrats. Okay. It's half. Okay. So more Democrats think, more Democratic voters um, believe that things were going well. Okay. So that's why they voted for Harris. Okay. Do you think the condition of the nation's economy is excellent or good? 31%. 68% not so good or poor. And the people who thought that the economy was not going well, among those people, 70% voted Republican in this election. Where the people who were saying that things were going great, the vast majority voted Democrat. So I think that this is where Harris's campaign could have been more focused, especially had she become president. She could have focused on price gouging, which she did talk about in the first week of her campaign, but then later on, she completely forgot. She started focusing more on abortion and democracy and the threat that Trump poses on our democratic system. So compared to 4 years ago, is your family's financial situation, is it better today? 24% say yes, right? Worse, it's almost half. Okay. And then the worst, people among the 46%, 81% of those people voted Republican. About the same, 30%. And most of those people who say things are about the same or they've improved, they voted Democrat. Okay. In the last year, has inflation caused you and your family a severe hardship, a moderate hardship, or no hardship at all? So the moderate, severe, it's 80%. Okay. And the majority of those voters, you look at the graph there, they went Republican. And if it was more severe, people were like, so what it seems that, and there was an interview or someone, not an interview, but they were interviewed, I guess. It was a voter and they were quoted in one of the articles. And the voter said that he knew that Trump he believed Trump's a dictator. Okay. And that he's a fascist, but he still voted for him. And he voted for him specifically because his economic condition at the moment is worse. He's worse off now than he was 4 years ago. Okay. So that's something that the Democrats have to think about as they run in the next midterm in 2 years. Do you think America's best days are in the past, 35%, or in the future? Okay. And there you see the breakdown right there. Okay. And then the next sets of questions are about um, the how they feel about things. Which one of these 5 issues mattered most in deciding how you voted for president? So 4% said foreign policy. So the Ukraine and the situation in the Middle East, 4%. And you look at foreign policy, look how just among that 4%, right? It's on the margins, but even on that issue, the country voted Republican. Okay. So that's important. That's to keep in mind. The abortion issue, 14% say yes, and the Democrats they got that issue. Okay. The economy. So the state of democracy and the economy were the two main issues. The state of the economy, 80% of those voters voted Republican. Okay. For the state of democracy, 80% voted Democrat. Okay. And then, so not all of the people who say democracy voted Democrat. Okay. So some even Republican voters stated that democracy was a concern. because they view the other side as a threat to democracy. Okay? And immigration, of course, was 11%. It's not, it's the immigration here was listed as the fourth most important issue. So it was not one of the most important issues in this campaign among voters. But in that on that issue, the Republicans just um, swept it. Now, what's interesting is that on the issue of the foreign policy, the Democrats went to the right. And on the issue of immigration, they pivoted to the right. None of those decisions, by taking a harder line on the issue in Ukraine and in Gaza, it did not help Democrats in the electorally, and it actually ended up hurting them. And especially on immigration, it did not work. Trying to look tough on immigration, just it does not function because you're not providing voters a clear alternative. You're just giving them more of the same. And so what could they have done on the issue of foreign policy? They could have halted arms. They did halt one shipment, so they could have halted more shipments to Israel and told Israel, you need to stop. They could have easily told Israel to stop their onslaught. It would not have made a difference to Israel if that had happened. It would not have made things worse. There's been no repeat of the October 7th attacks, and it would have made life more better for the people, the Palestinian people in that region. And so you have a lot of Arab and Muslim voters here in this country, and young people who are college students and progressives who punished the White House by not voting or voting for a third party. And in some very few cases, people voted for Trump because of the situation in Gaza. And on immigration, it just completely failed, this policy. And I looked at the figures. Obama deported over 5 million people. In his first term, he deported 3.2 million. He deported more people than even Donald Trump did in his first term in office. So, the Democrats could have easily presented themselves as a party. They could have told the country, "Hey, look, we this is the number that we've deported over the years. This it's not working. Okay, so we need to try something new." They could have tried to reframe that issue, and instead of pivoting to the right, because when you pivot to the right, also you're falling into the hands of the enemy, because you're basically what you're saying is that you're conceding the argument. You're basically admitting that they're correct. And what we know is that the Republicans are not correct in their approach to immigration. So, what could she have done? I think she should have focused more on the economy, because this is what the voters here are telling these exit pollsters, that really the economy, it's really not so much inflation. They say inflation, but inflation's down across the country. It's not inflation. It's the cost of grocery stores, of gas prices that were up. Though gas prices had in many places gone down, but the prices in grocery stores that have keep going up, that was the issue. Also, I think that the recovery of COVID is really not over. I think that a lot of people are still feeling the after effects of the economy being shut down when Trump was in office. Okay, so the Democrats could have done better messaging there. They could have pointed out, hey, Trump was the president when the economy was shut down here. And so there were people who were working online virtually, but most people could not do that. They couldn't afford that. So with the Latino vote, for example, that has gone more Republican, there are a lot of Latinos who work in the restaurant industry. So that was even mentioned in some of the media coverage recently, especially in Spanish language news, that a lot of people were laid off uh, after COVID when Biden was already in office because most of the restaurants could not serve. They had to focus more on takeout than in dining service, and that hurt a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurant models that are not uh, geared towards that type of business. So I had mentioned that one of the restaurants near my neighborhood was a Sizzlers here on one of the major streets 2 blocks away from here. It shut down a couple of years ago. They tried to do focus on takeout, but again, their model for decades has been in dining service, and so they just they could not compete in this new COVID era environment where because they're not a takeout service. The majority of the staff who worked there were Latino, and those people, as a result, most likely lost their jobs. And we're talking about people in their 40s and 50s because I had mentioned this before in a previous live stream that those people had been working there 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I first started going there. I stopped going about 20 years ago. But they had been there, and I always walked the neighborhood. I would always see them as I would walk by, walking back home. But you have to think that what happened to those people who are now in their 40s and 50s, or possibly some of them in their 60s, they're out of work. And at that age, it is very difficult, especially in this economy, to find a new job. Because very few employers out there are going to hire a 50-some-year-old or a 60-some-year-old worker. And this is what the reality that a lot of the people online don't understand. So a lot of people on the left feel that these voters are foolish, that they're stupid, that they don't know what they're talking about. Inflation's low, their economic the economy is not that bad. Look at these figures. They're actually doing better. They're lying to both. Okay, so the thing with the statistics is that when workers are laid off under the Labor Bureau statistics here in the US, if a worker becomes disengaged with the market economy, with the market, with the job market, and they stop looking for work, they are no longer considered unemployed. Okay, so the unemployment figures they don't paint the reality of what people are really living through. The other thing that these people, like Mehdi Hassan is one of them, that they're not understanding is that even if they are doing slightly better right now, okay, let's say in 2020 COVID hits, and let's say a year later you lose your job, and you're out looking for a job, and let's say it took you 8 months or maybe 9 months to find a new job. Well, and so you're collecting, hopefully, unemployment benefits depending on what state you're in. So it's going to be okay. So you have lost 8 months or 9 months of your wages. So even if you get a new job, you have an 8 month, 9 month gap. Okay. And so grocery prices, even if eggs have gone up $1, right? More, let's say, on a box of eggs, right? A dozen eggs in a carton. That all of those price increases, even though they're small or minimal, they matter because these people, even if they have a new job, they suffered an impact or maybe a crisis in their families. Okay. Also, the cost of healthcare. We're not even talking about that, but what happens when people get hurt on a job or they find out that they have cancer? There's no universal health care. So the Medicare for All bill would have been suitable. And Biden said he was not going to fight for Medicare for All. He was against it. Okay. So then they did a study saying that Medicare for All would have been helpful during the pandemic. Okay, and what did Biden say during the 2020 the debate? Oh, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Medicare for all would not have made a difference during COVID. Okay. But the study that was done later, and I forget what it was, but it had been covered by some media outlets, pointed out that no, that actually would have helped a lot. So that's something that the Democrats moving forward could be talking about. The healthcare issue is tied to the economy, and it's tied to the cost of living. Okay, because what happens if you do have healthcare insurance in your job? But what happens if you get laid off? Under our system, once you get laid off, you lose your healthcare, you lose your benefits. Okay, and you have to hope that your new employer hopefully offers healthcare benefits, this hopefully the same that you had before. But not a lot of people had that luxury, unfortunately. Okay. And so the rest of the polling there, and it's showing here on immigration, 56% of voters say that should most undocumented immigrants in the US be offered a chance to apply for legal status? Look at that. 56% of voters polled on this NBC exit poll said yes, there should be a pathway to citizenship. And among that group, it's overwhelmingly 3/4 are Democrats, okay, or voted Democrat. Should most undocumented immigrants in the US be deported into the countries they came from? 40%, less than half, say yes. And the overwhelming majority of them are Republican. So moving right during a campaign, trying to appear tough on immigration, the Harris was appealing to voters who were not going to vote for her. Okay, so she was trying to appeal to voters who, you look at the results here, who were not going to vote for her to begin with. Okay, so this is a problem with the whole triangulation strategy during the Clinton years. It's a failed strategy. It does not work because those voters, their minds have been made up. And by the way, they did another exit poll. I think it's on this one here. Then when did they decide who they were going to vote for? And this is important. And I'll tell you why later. Okay. Right here. So time, when did you finally decide for whom to vote for in the presidential election? Did you decide in September? 7%. Well, what about before September? 79, so 86% of the country by the end of the September, 86% had already decided who they were going to vote for. So, and I point this out because Kamala Harris had raised $1 billion in this campaign. And in the last month of the campaign, she only had about 118 million left of that war chest. And she spent a lot of that money, not all of it, but a lot of that money on celebrities, meeting with celebrities and concerts. So John Bon Jovi performed, and I think Bruce Springsteen and Christina Aguilera, Lady Gaga. She appeared with Oprah Winfrey. She spent about 20 million on one of the concerts. So, so before election day, 20 million got spent. When, if you look at the exit polling here, only 4% of the voters were still trying to figure out on the last couple of days of the election who they were going to vote for. So she spent $20 million trying to appeal to less than 4% of the voting public. Okay, so it was a lot of wasted resources, and by the way, it's not ultimately like completely her fault, because the idea came apparently from an Obama campaign, a former Obama campaign official who said this is what we should do. Okay, but at the end of the day, she is the one responsible. It's her campaign, and she's the one who makes the decisions. So that was one area where the Democrats, they outraised Trump by over $600 million. He only raised a little over 300 billion, and he still has money left in the campaign coffers. Whereas Kamala Harris went into debt. She has, what was the figure here? They're in debt by, I think it's at least 20 million in debt. That they owe. Uh, so yeah, so that's a couple other things here on this election that I wanted to mention. I know I've gone over and the time here. I didn't want to spend all this time here discussing all of this. So thank you. Please like the live stream. Hopefully you find some of this stuff informative. And again, I apologize for the presentation, but there is just a lot of information. So we're still not sure who will take control of the House. It appears more likely that it will be the Republicans, but even if they do, it will be a very razor thin margin uh, of a majority, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson is going to have a difficult time trying to implement or get Trump's agenda passed through the House because it's just a small margin. And also, they are going to have a tough time because you look at some of the House races, they were very close. And even right now, some of the races where the Republicans are ahead, or even the races that were recently called, they were very close. So those members of Congress who have those seats who are Republican, they have to be careful how they vote in the next 2 years, because in 2 years every member of the House comes up for reelection, and so their opponents are going to be taking a look at all the votes that they've taken, and they're going to be you probably do attack ads on them because they voted a certain way, or so yeah, so they have to be careful, and it's going to be hard for the Republicans to get a lot of the major stuff that they want done through the House, I believe. But who knows? Maybe they'll all of the Republicans will vote the way Trump wants them to vote. But it has not been called yet, the control of the House, and so that's where we're at right now. I'll do another live stream on the who's to blame or what happened in the election and why Trump won the election in a future live stream. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the live stream and have a good day.